on Easter Sunday. We know what happens when we realize all the transformation that we must go through and turn from our sin. Jesus looks at us and says, I forgive you, I love you. The rest of the year's for celebrating. Ta-da! Now there's three things we have to understand in order to not just celebrate one day a year, but to have a never-ending celebration. I want you to think about this story of Elijah and Elisha. I don't know how many NASCAR fans we have in here, but back in the day we used to refer to one Earnhardt as Big E and the other one as Little E. All right, Dale Sr. and Dale Jr. Elisha's Big E. Elisha is Little E. All right? So Elijah was getting up there in years, and he was going to all of his different synagogues and temples and schools where he taught about prophecy. And he was basically sharing his swan song. And Elisha, his chief protege, was like a little puppy following Elijah wherever he went. So Elijah gets to Gilgal, and he tells Elisha, okay, I'm going home to be with the Lord. Please stop following me. Elisha says, no way. As long as you are alive and as long as the Lord is alive, I will follow you wherever you go. Fine. So Elijah begins this huge trek to Bethel. And I can just imagine what's going on there, and Elisha, understanding that Elijah's days are coming to an end, he's like, when are you going to leave? When are you going to die? Are you okay? Do you need pancakes? What's going on here? And they get to Bethel, and there Elijah tells the story of the Lord's coming to take me home. Remember what you have been taught. And now I'm going to Jericho. Elisha, you stay here and teach these people at Bethel. Elisha says, no. As long as you're living, and as long as the Lord's living, I'm following you wherever you go. So they take another 40-mile journey to Jericho. Well, now we're starting to get to places we know about. There Elijah looks at Elisha and says, come with me. We're going to the Jordan. Now for you literary buffs who love to study ancient theology and love to study ancient text and love to study ancient Greek mythology, you know the importance of the river Jordan. It was long thought that if you're going to Israel to over the river, meant you were what? Going home to be with the Lord. Going home to be with the Lord. So Elijah stands on the banks of this river and tells Elijah to get in. Now, I don't know about you, but if this guy's pestering me and I know that I'm getting on somebody's nerves, they tell me to get into water, I'm fearing for my life. I'm fearing I'm getting baptized, but not coming back up. So Elijah stands in the middle of the water with Elisha and says, what is it with you? What is it that you want before the Lord comes and takes me home? And Elisha says something that changes the Old Testament. Using a cell phone. Changes something that changes the entire prophecy of the Old Testament. Says, I want double the spirit of whatever God gave you. It's the most unselfish request ever. So the first thing for a never-ending celebration is this. Find someone who you will follow all over the place because they are spiritual giants. Think of that person in your mind that you know when they pray for you, you've been prayed for. That you know when they say, I have a word from the Lord to give you today, you know it's from the Lord. Find that person and cling to them and say, as long as you live and as long as the Lord lives, I will never leave you. Even if it means following him to the Jordan River. The second thing is, don't be selfish. Be selfless. You see, Elisha could have stopped at numerous places and took over Elijah's ministry. He could have become lead prophet right then and there because Elijah was simply trying to go home. Simply going to try and meet God. Elijah says, no, I promised, as long as you live, as long as the Lord lives, I'll follow you. So he goes from place to place, doing whatever it is that the one he knows is the voice of God tells him to go, he follows them. And he makes the request, I want a spirit that is double yours. And what this simply means is Elisha doesn't think he can do anything near what Elijah did. Does not think he can talk to kings and queens. Does not think he can even talk to peasants and give them the word of the Lord. And so his request is, I am so unworthy. I am so unworthy to be your protege. I pray that God give me double the spirit he gave you, because that's the only way this is going to work. Now here's where God gets humorous. Because what does Elijah say? That's a really big request. I tell you what, if you see me go home, you see the Lord take me up into heaven, if you stand in the middle of the Jordan River and it opens up, that means God has granted you the request. And the moment Elijah says that, what happens? Jordan River parts, Elijah up in a chariot. Elijah's been granted his request. He is now doubly blessed because he asked for something big that only God could deliver. So you want this never-ending celebration to stay with you? Ask for something from God that only God can deliver. Do not count on yourself. Do something that only God can deliver. My parents used to host, I don't even know what they were doing, but when I was really little, my brother and I used to share a room, and we had bunk beds. And I got to sleep on the top bunk. I was a lot smaller than him. I got to sleep on the top bunk. And every Wednesday night, my parents would have people over around 7:30, and we were told to go to bed. Please go to our room. And we would hear people downstairs laughing, telling stories, joking around, having this wonderful time. And then around 9 p.m., we started to hear singing. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, Lord, I want to be in that number. When the saints go marching in. My brother and I had no idea what was going on down there. But we eventually picked up on the song, and when they started singing at 9 o'clock, what did my brother and I, who love getting into trouble, do? Tried to out-sing them. We were sitting there in the bedroom. Oh, Atlas! Then my brother picked up the trumpet. He picked it up. He didn't know how to play it. What my parents were doing was they were in a group that studied Scripture from 7:30 to 9 p.m. every Wednesday. And in that group, they found people who they knew to be spiritual giants. They knew to be spiritual, that when they got prayed for, they were really getting prayed for. And when they shared words of wisdom, with each other, they knew that it was from God. And they always closed in prayer. That God would do something that only God could do. And it never failed. They would share prayer requests from the previous weeks about God transforming lives. About people who they never thought would come to know Jesus were now sitting in the living room of my parents. People at this church in Columbus, Ohio, getting baptized by the hundreds simply because they said, God, only you can do this. That's how never-ending celebrations begin. Do not be shy about asking God for the big things when it comes to changing the world. I want to end with this story. I've been on over 20 mission trips in my life, most of them with youth. You want to ask God to do something bigger than you? Go on a mission trip with youth. And then be their leader too. Only God can do that. So we were on this trip when, again, back from my church in Indiana, and we were on our way to North Carolina. If you remember, this was back in probably 2005, 2006, where a hurricane had just hit the coast. There were buildings flooded in North Carolina. So we went there to clean out some of the debris. We went there to do vacation Bible school in the evening. By Friday afternoon, when we were ready to leave and go home, our kids were begging to stay because they saw lives transform. And I couldn't help myself. Guess what I sang on the way home? Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, Lord, I want to be in that number. When the saints go marching in. Let's stand and let's sing our closing song.